Welcome to Two Chicks Talk Writing. I'm Isabella.
And I'm McGee.
Welcome to our show. So McGee, we're talking about writing groups and critique groups and writing sprints. In your mind, what's the difference between a writing group and a critique group?
I think of a writing group as mostly a social element of it, encouraging each other, maybe sharing latest software you found or whatever information about a new publishing magazine or something. I think of critique groups as people that are exchanging portions of written materials in some manner, whether you read it out loud to each other or you email it or you hand them a copy, and then they make their suggestions and comments onto your work. And then sprint groups, it could be either of those, I suppose, but all of the ones that I have been in are just simply a motivator to get you to start writing at a certain time and to stop writing at a certain time, just get as many words down on the paper as you can. You can't edit a blank page. So fundamentally, sprinting solves that problem.
So basically, the purpose of sprinting is just to get the words on the page. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not saying, just a random bunch of words, but you're trying to get, it's kind of stream of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Writing.
Exactly.
Okay, I get it. Okay.
Yeah. Writing and critique groups, do they work? Love them? Hate them?
Hate them.
Hate them?
Hate them.
So what kind of writing groups have you done? Online, in person?
No in-person ones. I have done online ones as part of a class where everybody goes through and they critique everybody's work. So I would consider that a critique group. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them because oftentimes, the instructor always has to say, this is constructive criticism. It's not to tear somebody apart or shred their manuscript and there's always those one or two people in class who feel like they're vindicated if they can shred somebody's manuscript. And I think that's counterproductive. I think that it does the exact opposite in some ways for some people who maybe their self-esteem, their writing self-esteem is not as well developed. And so I think that oftentimes it can do more damage than good. That's just my opinion. And that's, one of the reasons, not why I don't participate in them. I think that I'm happy to look at someone's manuscript and give them some advice. I try to remember that, they have feelings and the person on the other end, instead of just kind of going in and just slash and burn and say, this is crap and blah.
Right.
I know you have had experience in this, so tell us about your experience.
I have, and I guess I would clarify that what you're talking about is not the same as a beta reader that might look at your sort of complete manuscript or chapters and give you feedback as what they might think. This is more of other authors that you're working with. So I just would want to make sure people could understand that. I have done in-person writing groups way back in the day, and it became really obvious that some of them didn't know what in the blazes they were talking about. And so there was such a broad level of experience, and I found most of the people were more of what you were talking about, trying to shred each other to gain that foot up and to really, and you could tear apart any book. I mean, you could every book that's out there, you could have a difference of opinion, but it's and that's what it is, opinions. And it takes a while to develop that thick skin to not take those personally. And on the other side of the coin, I've had problems sometimes turning my ears on to hear what they're really trying to say and just are I'm stuck. I know this is great. What do you mean? You don't like this? Are you kidding me? So yeah, so I think it can go both directions. But I have done most of my writing groups online, actually. Pre-COVID, we had a group that would get together at a certain time, certain day of the week, and we would do what we called sprints. And our rules for a sprint were that we start and stop at X number of minutes, usually half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes. And you just try to crank as many words out as you can in that amount of time. So you don't look up stuff on the internet. You don't get lost in some deep dive to find out how many colors of eyes certain kind of horse could have or whatever, you know. And if you have a thing, my personal thing is I put in a triple X if I need to look something up later, because I would never put that in my story, and I could do a find in Word, and then every time I find one, I'm like, oh, I need a name for that character, or what color card did I say he have? And then I don't have to look it back up. I can just make a note to do it later.
So it's more like a NaNoWriMo. These writing sprints are kind of like a 30-day NaNoWriMo chopped down into like 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour.
Yes. And I've done them like once a week. I have a group now through some Facebook people. We meet twice a week in the morning, and some people are there every time. Some drop in and out as they can. I think the difference for me is like with the Nano contests, for those of you who haven't seen, there's all kinds of seasonal ones now, but it's basically a 30-day writing challenge, and you try to get 40,000 words done. And some people go to the extreme of they won't even delete a wrong word because they don't reduce their word count. So I mean, there's some but they have online tallies that you do, and you get little badges and stuff, so it is encouraging. And there's local events you can go to. There's usually a local coordinator for your county and that, and you can meet at the library for an hour. That reminds me of toddlers playing in the sandbox. You really don't play with each other. They each have their own truck. They're just next to each other. They're both happy. And it's kind of the same thing. The writing people didn't really talk to each other. We just sat down, wrote like hell, and got out of there. So, and every one of them made fun of my romance books. So I didn't find it particularly, you write romance? What?
Like, really? As I've said before to you, I am one of those people who likes to set up expectations. And I think that from my experience in being in these kind of so-called critique groups, I think that a lot of people just kind of go in there and think, oh, they're going to love my stuff. It's going to be great. And then they go into their first one and they come out defeated, just devastated that they feel like their manuscript got shredded. You know, they thought they were doing better, and then they come out of that and they want to suddenly give up writing. What kind of goals or expectations would you give to a writer who's thinking about joining a critique or a writing group? Because a writing group and a critique group are two different things. So
I have had some of my writing groups blend into what I would call now in hindsight, more of a critique group where we send each other chapters and things. I think you have to be aware that the people you're sharing your stuff with may not know any more than you do. You know, you're not going to get an English professor that's dallying with a writing group in their spare time that's going to maybe be at the library with the rest of you. So, I mean, they may have a thing going, but so there is some of that, you know, wanting to belong, fear of missing out. But for me, I just use it as a motivation to write, to get my hiney in the chair for a certain set time, to make a word count, even if everything else in my life is chaos and I haven't written in weeks. Those 20 minutes I'm in the chair and I'm cranking some words out. So it eventually, you know, you have something. But I think you'll see a lot of books released in December, even of people who have written it in November and they think it's done and it's a hot mess and it's up on, you know, for sale. They're like, yeah, I just wrote this, it's up. I'm like, dude, really? Who edited this thing? Oh, I did. Oh, perfect. Can't wait to read it.
Yeah, I've actually seen NaNoWriMo pitch fests where people can go and pitch they line up, 3 or 4 agents or 6 agents from different publishing agencies, and you pitch your NaNoWriMo book to them. And I thought, maybe you would want to get that edited first. I'm just thinking, because nobody's that great of a writer out of the gates.
Well, and 3,000, 2,500, whatever words you're trying to do, that's a lot of words. Topic for another day, Pantzer or plotter, do you have an outline of some sort before you start? And trying to write 40,000 words with no idea where you're going seems impossible to me. At least in a short term, I had to come up with at least a daily goal. I did Nano once. It was a lot of fun. I thought I got the t-shirt and stuff. I thought that was nifty, and met some other writers, and that was pretty nifty. So I'll give it the fact that I got 40,000 words written. I think 45 in the end. Whether any of them are redeemable or not, I don't know, because I realized after I wrote it, it was part of a series, and there was another book that needed to go before that one. So I haven't looked at it in a year and a half. So I'm about to, and I think I'm probably going to have nuggets of delight and nuggets of horror. Who wrote this trash?
Would you say somebody who's looking at joining a writing group, their expectations would be, or a critique group, what would they expect to get out of? We know those are two different things, critique group and a writing group. I mean, the expectation of a writing group would be you're going to sit down and write for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, whatever length of time it is. Their expectation would be to get a certain amount of words out, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think you would assume you would get support. It's like going to Thanksgiving dinner at a friend's house. You just never know what that family's going to look like till you get there. So there are people definitely building themselves up by crushing you. So those people are out there. And on the other side of that coin, now you're going to be expected to read the work of 4 or 5, 10 other people that are in this group. So now you have a commitment back to them. You have to ask yourself, what are they looking for? How do I give them feedback, even on a short chapter? And some people are going to hand you the same chapter 15 times, and you have to keep smiling and keep rereading it. And
even after your eyes are bleeding after
yes. And the same thing you've said 14 times is still there. And they ask what you think about the difference, and you can't tell any difference at all. So
your comment is still the same the first time as it was the 14th time.
Exactly.
And now at the 15th time, I'm still having the same comment.
Right. And I think, for new writers, especially, that camaraderie. I mean, writing is such a solitary thing. I think the internet probably has changed some aspects in terms of social media. You can talk with other writers, but you can see stuff that people have put, on Twitter. Hey, other writers, what do you think about this? And you're like, hey, can't you Google? Why are you asking us?
So let me ask you this. Is there some do's and don'ts in writing groups? Let's tackle writing groups, and then we'll tackle critique groups. What are the do's and don'ts in your opinion for a writing group?
Don't say anything that would be near a critique without making it a compliment sandwich. And what I mean by that is, I love that your characters are so tall. I wish that we talked less about what their car looked like. And I really find it interesting that neither of them played basketball. Whatever you can pull out of that, make that little critique sandwich. So it takes a little of the smack out of it.
So if you're gonna say something that is constructive, and something positive, so that they have. It sounds like you're trying to buffer the critique, by giving them a nugget they can hold on to when you drop this part really sucked. I know you're not going to say it in that way, but
yes.
I'm not sure how this is relevant to the book, so you might want to think about taking it out.
Exactly. no one wants to hear their story is stupid. I would certainly encourage people to write, but know that when you are in a room full of other newbie writers, not only is the feedback they give you suspect, but you're going to have to give feedback too, and it's not going to always be well received or even listened to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was in a group where we shared stories. Do you worry about your work being stolen or plagiarized?
Initially, I did.
Maybe let me be a little more succinct. As I said, I was in a writing group where we all submitted short stories. Once a month, we all would submit short stories. I actually had a story that was plagiarized. It was a story. I'm not gonna say who the well-known author is, but it was the next. I read the blurb to this novel, and it's my short story that I had submitted into this group for feedback, for reading, and they had taken, and it was a short story I was going to turn into a book. Now I can't turn it into a book.
Mm-hmm.
So and that was another reason why I don't do writing groups. That it wasn't the first time that happened. It's happened to me twice. And so are you ever concerned that sharing your work might end up being in someone else's book?
Now I am, for sure. I have put a few things online, free short stories and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't really thought about too much what other people might do with that. I think in some ways, a fanfic thing would be cool. Somebody loved your story, they were adding on it. Oh, you missed this angle they're going to write about. That would be really cool. But somebody taking your whole idea and making a whole new book, and now you can't
Mm-hmm.
write it, and yeah, I'd be pretty mad.
Gosh, you really hate to think that somebody would do that to you, but having had it happen to me, I have to say that it is eye-opening. And this is one of those situations where I think a lot of times authors in their zeal to get some feedback or to get the attaboys, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
some attaboys, prematurely release their stuff out there without thinking about copyright and protections and things like that. Only because it's happened to me twice now.
Wow.
Twice.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to think about that, but
So let me,
thanks.
well, you know what? Look, I think that if somebody asked me for advice on whether they should join a critique group or a writing group, my first question would be, are we sharing work? Am I verbally reading something and someone's giving me feedback? Am I giving you a written piece that you can mark up on the spot? Am I giving you a digital piece for you to have and mark up and send comments back? Do I have, I would ask, do I have any say as to how I can ask someone for feedback? Can I say, hey, I think I might have a plot hole. Can you look to see if I have a plot hole? That's all I'm interested in. Can I make sure that I get pointed feedback as to, is there growth? Are these characters flat? Are they, fat and fluffy and full of details, or are they, road thin and put away wet? Do I have the ability to ask them questions? And what kind of what are the rules for constructive feedback? Have you, as a group, established a set of rules, kind of like battle rules? Have you established a set of battle rules that you shouldn't say this or you can't say that? And if you say, you can't be negative. And it sounds silly to say that, but having been in this business, and I have been shredded by one of the best, let me say that, as someone who has been edited by what I consider one of the best writers and authors in this industry. And we're friends to this day. We're good friends. It still hurts. It still smarts a little. You get, but I think that there should be some rules, or you should be asking those things of your critique group. Do I have to critique other people's work? How many do I have to critique? Is it a 1-for-1 kind of thing? So I think those are some things people joining a critique group should ask. Is it a big critique group? Is it a small critique group? Is it a genre-specific critique group? Because as you said, in your group, you said you wrote romance and everybody snickered and went, oh, that matters. Because then you feel like, oh, well, I'm not worthy to be in this group because I write romance.
Well, I'm old enough. I just thought they were jack wagons, but then it does,
sure.
It does make me never want to go and do an in-person nano event again, because I just don't need their feedback, and I can get just as much encouragement. And I think it comes back to your expectations. I thought that I was going to meet some like-minded folks and have some camaraderie, and there was a tiny
That's not what happened.
There was a tiny bit of that, but not much.
And now a tip of the day from the Writer's Toolbox.
My tip of the day would be to learn to work your craft and to keep learning.
There are many books on writing. There are a lot of articles online. There are magazines you can subscribe to. You can take classes and workshops both online or in person, and all of these things will help improve your writing.
The bottom line is your book has always got to be the best it can be, and there's always more things we can learn. If you have something you want to hear us talk about, make some comments below.
Check out our Two Chicks Talk Writing website at www.2chickstalkwriting.com. You'll find all of our past podcast episodes there, as well as some tools and tips and freebies you can download. You can also check out our Facebook page, Two Chicks Talk Writing, and our Instagram at Two Chicks Talk Writing.